Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to actually start sewing on a budget. I know that sewing can be really expensive. It's not a cheap hobby. It's not cheaper than making your own clothes. It's more of a creative outlet and the excitement that you get for actually creating your own clothes. But I know that this comes at a cost, so let's talk about budget ways to start sewing. The first thing that you need to start sewing is a sewing machine. Typically, when you are purchasing a brand new machine, they're anywhere from like $100 and I think the cheapest one is like $119. All the way up to like tens and thousands of dollars. When you're first starting to sew, you really don't need anything super fancy. You need a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch and maybe a buttonhole function if you're wanting to do garments with buttonholes. I first learned to sew when I was about 8. My grandma taught me, and I actually learned to sew on my great grandma's sewing machine, and then I kind of stopped sewing when I was about 13, and then I got back into it around 2019. When I first started sewing again back in 2019, the sewing machine that I had gotten broke a year later. I paid $135 for it at the time. And so I thought during COVID, I needed a new machine. I wanted a machine that had an automatic needle down position, and I wanted all the bells and whistles. And 2 years later, I realized that I didn't need all of that. I really only do a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch and maybe a buttonhole here or there. So I decided to start looking into getting a vintage sewing machine. What I mean by vintage, I actually have a 1920 sewing machine and I love it. However, it doesn't do a back tack, or some people call it a reverse stitch. So I knew that I wanted something a little bit different, and I was doing all my research and found that I really wanted a 1940s Singer featherweight machine. This is my featherweight. You guys have seen it in all of my videos that I posted for 12 Days of Christmas, and I absolutely love this machine. However, it doesn't do a zigzag stitch. I am absolutely obsessed with vintage sewing machines. I love the way they sound. I love the way they sew. I love everything about them. They're very easy to work on. They're workhorses. They'll last forever if you take care of them properly. So I decided to invest in a vintage sewing machine that does a zigzag stitch, and I purchased a machine from the thrift store for $19.99. I'm waiting for a cord to come in to get it up and running. With that being said, typically a featherweight machine goes for about $500, and I purchased it for $45. It was dusty and crusty, and all I did was research how to oil them and clean them up, and now it works amazing. Obviously, when you're first starting to sew, you're not gonna want to get something that you have to put a lot of work in, especially because you don't really know anything about sewing machines. So if you're wanting to get a machine on an extreme budget, you can still find secondhand machines that are newer machines, or even a vintage machine that's been serviced. And basically when you purchase it, you just plug it in and you can start sewing. I've scoured the internet to show you some options of machines that you can purchase on the secondhand market that are available in my area. So definitely look on like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, those kinds of places to find secondhand machines. You can even look at the thrift store. Typically when they're donated to the thrift store, there's a reason they're donated. Like mine doesn't have a cord. So keep that in mind when you're looking for machines. If you're looking for a sewing machine at a thrift store, you want to turn the wheel to make sure that it turns smoothly and it's not frozen. And you always want to turn the wheel towards you when you're testing a machine. Honestly, when you're using a machine in general, you always want to turn the hand wheel towards you. Let's talk about some machines that I have found in my area. I've screenshotted some of them for you so that you can see what I have found. This is a Brother machine. It's a very beginner machine, very basic. They want $25 for it. Typically this machine, I believe, is like $109. It has the reverse stitch, it does zigzag, it has decorative stitches, it has a buttonholer, and for $25, you can't go wrong. Now, if you're wanting to go the vintage route, I personally love a vintage Singer and I love vintage Viking. So Viking is also Husqvarna. When you go to Joann's, those are the vendors that they have there, is the Husqvarna Viking vendor. However, this one is an older Husqvarna machine or Viking machine This is a metal machine. It is a workhorse, I'm sure. A machine like this one is $40. A machine like this, you'll probably need to get serviced if you are brand new to sewing and have absolutely no idea what you're doing. I would get this machine serviced by a professional. You can look up a sew and vac in your area or sewing machine maintenance in your area, and they will be able to service something like this for around $80 to $100, depending on how old your machine is. The easier it is to service, so I would definitely call around and see if you can get some prices on machine servicing. And then this one is also a vintage machine. This is a Singer. This machine has cams, so I personally don't like cams, but they are a great option because the Singer company made different little discs that go in the top up here that create different decorative stitches. So if you're wanting to do fancy stitching, this is a good option for you. But it does have a straight stitch and a back tack. This one is $70 and seems like it's in really great condition. As you can see, they did a test sew, and then also they have the bobbins, some needles, and a little screwdriver for you as well. The most expensive part about continuously sewing, whereas like a sewing machine is a one-time investment, but continuously sewing is expensive because you have to buy all the materials for it. You're probably going to be looking for patterns, for fabric, for thread, zippers, all of that fun stuff. The cheapest way to make things once you have your sewing machine is finding fabric at thrift stores and finding zippers and all kinds of other notions at thrift stores as well. The only things that you do not want to purchase secondhand are needles unless they're brand new in the packaging, or thread. When thread gets old, it gets brittle. When you go to open a project or even like pull on the thread will break because it is so brittle and old. So that is something that you'll have to purchase with new projects or when you run out of like white or black thread. There are great inexpensive options like buying them on Amazon, or even when Joann's has a sale. Sometimes they do a sale of like buy 3 get 1 free. So that's a great way to purchase the thread at a low cost. Also, you can buy thread on the big spools for like a serger, and that thread will last you forever. Locally here in Arizona, we have a place called SAS that has discounted fabric, kind of like a Ross, and they also have thread. So I like to buy my thread there. I think it's like 75 cents a spool. It's pretty inexpensive. They also have needles. So if you're local to the Arizona area, the Phoenix area, I would recommend checking out SAS Fabrics. There are 2 locations. I absolutely love what they have to offer. Sometimes the employees are not the friendliest. They usually just like to keep to themselves. But overall, the store is amazing and they have great deals. They even have real leather there that you can get by the pound. In terms of pattern purchasing, patterns can be really expensive. I know like a McCall's pattern is like $30 now. So Joann's does have sales on patterns if you're wanting to purchase patterns. So they do like the major pattern companies, they do like a sale every like month where they are $1.99, 99 cents, $5.99, so you can get them at a discounted price. You just can't always get them at that price. A great way to get patterns when you're first starting to sew is digital patterns. There are free resources for digital patterns like Mood Society. They have all kinds of free patterns that people upload. If you go to moodfabrics.com, up in the top corner it says Mood Society or Society Sewing, but they have a ton of sewing projects, especially great ones for beginners. If you are looking for a small project, Pinterest has a ton of free patterns that creators have made and posted on a blog. Sometimes those have video tutorials as well, and I love to shop for patterns on Etsy. I love to support indie pattern makers. Usually patterns are about $3 to $11, $15 for a digital downloaded pattern. What we're gonna do is go to the thrift store and check out the fabric section so that you can see everything that they have to offer at my local thrift store. A good place to look is Savers and Goodwill if you are not local to the Arizona area, and it's usually really inexpensive. I actually have purchased a lot of the fabric that I have in my stash from a Facebook ad. I actually didn't purchase it because it was completely free, but great places to get fabric as well are like yard sales and also estate sales. Sometimes you can get really lucky and find great deals at estate sales and at yard sales on fabric and notions for sewing as well. There are so many options to sew on a budget. There is even a store online for fabric. It's a fabric thrift store called Swanson's Fabric, and they have a ton of thrifted fabric that they do for $4 a yard, and they are amazing people. I can't remember exactly where they're located, but they do ship their fabric as well. So definitely go check them out. I will leave them in the link down in the description box as well for you to check out later. I hope this helped you in your sewing journey to sew on a budget or to start sewing on a budget. There are also a ton of free resources here on YouTube that can teach you how to use your sewing machine. All you would need to do is type in the sewing machine model that you have and look up tutorials on how to thread the machine, what all the different stitches are. If you want to know about my personal machines, I would love to share them with you. I would also love to answer any questions that you have, so please comment down below your questions that you have for me on how to start sewing. I know this video is kind of brief because I wanted to give everybody an idea with any kind of budget on how to start sewing and where to start looking. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, please leave them below. And if you purchase a secondhand machine or a vintage machine, please share a picture with me. I would love to see them. Like I said, I am obsessed with vintage sewing machines, so I would love to see what you have found on the secondhand market as well. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, click that notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.